believed in our vision, and we understand that this structural challenge with price premium will persist for a while. All the studies from Clean Skies for Tomorrow, they projected there could be cost premiums even in 2050. So because of that, World Energy and I knew that we would have to have some kind of mechanism on the voluntary market side if we wanted to stack additional emissions reductions beyond what governments were required.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying. On this show, I speak with aviation leaders, innovators, and policymakers driving real action, separating the signal from the noise to spotlight what's truly moving the industry forward. The same focus that is at the heart of our new book, Sustainability in the Air, Volume 2. In it, Dirk Singer and I take stock of how far the industry has come and how far we still need to go. With the global carbon budget potentially running out by 2032, the clock is ticking. But the most promising solutions today aren't just environmentally sound. They are economically superior as well, from SAF and contrail mitigation to direct air capture. The book offers a practical roadmap for aviation's journey to net zero. Get your copy today. Link in the show notes. My guest today is Adam Klauber, Chief Sustainability Officer at World Energy, one of the leading producers of sustainable aviation fuel. Adam has been deeply involved in building the early SAF market, working across airlines, airports, and policymakers to turn limited supply into real climate impact. In this conversation, we explore how World Energy helped scale SAF when demand was still uncertain, why voluntary action mattered before regulation caught up, and how tools like book and claim and SAF certificates played a critical role in unlocking early adoption across aviation. Adam, it's great to be finally speaking with you. We, of course, had, this is not the first rodeo for World Energy. You're the second person on. We had Gene a couple of years back on the podcast. But today we are here to discuss something very specific, which is book and claim. You've been there since the beginning, since before World Energy took the leadership mantle on book and claim. Can you tell us the origin story? Where were you at? Those rooms, those discussions that gave the birth to book and claim in aviation?
Yeah, happy to. I think it's a multi-part process. So the first part was starting at the Rocky Mountain Institute, or now RMI. And I was told by the person who hired me, Ned Harvey, he said, Adam, welcome to RMI. You're going to be working on finding ways to pay for SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. And I said, that's great, Ned. I don't think it'll work. Did you read my white paper on this that I wrote with Samuel Engel? And it basically
Samuel Engel.
Yes.
Wow, this is a small world.
Mind the carbon gap. So that in that white paper, we argued that the cost premium was prohibitive and that carbon offsets are likely the preferred alternative.
Let's go back a little more in history. If you wrote that before you joined RMI, and I'm guessing Samuel must have been at ICF at that time?
That's right.
Or was it still SHNE?
So it was transitioning.
Okay, there you go. So we're just going back in history. And what were you doing at that time?
I was starting their sustainable aviation group.
At ICF?
Their practice, yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So you and Sam wrote that paper, and we're going to give show notes, links to all of these people we're mentioning. It's a small community.
Yeah.
You and Sam co-authored that paper back when at ICF.
That's right.
Then you got to RMI, and you were tasked to implement this.
I was tasked to implement what I said was not possible. And there was a caveat. So I asked Ned, I said, Ned, I will try this because I believe in what RMI does. Mm-hmm. However, if it fails, I'm happy to work on other programs like accelerated aircraft efficiency and other measures.
So you had backups.
Yeah, I had backups. And so RMI said, fine, right now focus on this partnership we have with Sky NRG, where we think we can get airports on board to mandate SAF deliveries. So that
Interesting.
Was the first program.
What was in it for airports?
airports have been waiting for a while for volumes at this point. So I started RMI in 2015 before there was any commercial supply. Right? World Energy came on the scene, or Altair specifically in 2016. So airports, especially Seattle, Tacoma, that had been working on this for, I think at this point, 8 years or so, said, how can we catalyze this industry? What part could we play?
Why were they interested? There was no mandate. There were no incentives at that time.
Yeah.
Why should SeaTac care? I mean, charge your parking and be happy, right?
Yeah. So I think some of the flavor in SeaTac and Seattle in general is, right, it's very aviation focused and future forward. So the airport had been part of all of the stakeholder conversations about how do we stand up Pacific Northwest sustainable aviation fuel. And the airport was convinced that maybe if they mandate it ahead of everyone, that this will help catalyze delivery and start to stand up the industry. So we wrote a report, and the report was on innovative financing for SAF, what airports can do. And part of it was a requirement as part of the agreements between the airports and the airlines to bring in a certain percentage of SAF. And the Seattle Tacoma got everyone on board. They had the port commissioners on board for this too.
Okay.
And so they said, we're going to put it into effect, and we're going to require 1%. There was a little bit of a kerfuffle, as you can imagine. Airlines for America and other stakeholders were aghast, thinking this might set precedent. And they pushed back on that severely.
And it did not get passed.
It did not get passed because they even were able to influence the commissioners. And some commissioners were voted out. New ones came in, and they said, yeah, we can't. This is a bridge too far. We cannot mandate SAF.
Wow.
So we said, okay, we tried that experiment.
Okay.
There's got to be another way to do this.
Which year is this again, if you give us a timeline?
Yeah, so this report was in 2017, it came out. And then in 2018, I worked with SFO. So airports weren't done yet. So working with Aaron Cook as part of a larger feasibility project for SAF. And we said, well, we tried all of these on the compliance side, these actions that are not going to work. What if we focus on the voluntary market and we create something called the RSAF? RSAF was resilient, sustainable aviation fuel, and there'd be credits. And these could be potentially sold to end users like corporations that are flying on the aircraft or have their cargo. And it was just an idea that was half-baked, but some grounded in the renewable energy credit or renewable energy certificate market for solar and wind, knowing that there had been great advances in both of those sectors, and that the lessons that could be potentially useful to aviation. So that was like the second project that was more concrete on book and claim, because that's the only way you could then transfer these.
Now, you said this was done in other industries before. I remember back in the day, I think Amazon or Microsoft had powered a clean energy power station in Peru or somewhere in South America, and then were using those credits to fuel their data center operations in the US. So book and claim had been done in the power sector.
Yes.
You were just bringing it to aviation, correct?
That's correct.
What did you need to change to make it work in aviation?
Well, our innovation was the potential for giving the benefits or the claims to multiple parties. So the next stage after the SFO project was a program that I helped start called Clean Skies for Tomorrow with the World Economic Forum.
This was the predecessor to Airports of Tomorrow.
Exactly. So Christoph Wolff was leading the show at that point, and I headed what was called the Demand Signal Group, which was
for RMI.
Yeah, for RMI, for Clean Skies for Tomorrow. And that would involved a broad number of stakeholders across the aviation value chain. And we were at a meeting at the Presidio, and the participant on the buyer side said, I don't really need the direct emissions benefits. I'm not an airline. I just want scope 3 claims. And then a light bulb went off and people said, we need to have both. We need to actually create a parallel system to recognize the airlines and their direct emissions and their customers who have supply chain emissions reductions. And this was how we diverged and how we built upon the foundations of what was laid out for the power sector.
Okay. Now, this is the third thing you're trying.
Yeah.
Right? The first two weren't as spectacular successes as you had hoped.
Building blocks.
Building blocks, stepping stones, as you say, right? So now you have this third, some sort of a rendition of book and claim for aviation, scope 1 split with scope 3. Who did you bring this forward to? Was this through Clean Skies of Tomorrow's, and what was the response?
So we published a report in 2021 called the SAF Certificate Framework, and the name itself was almost half of the committee's work, was figuring out what is an acceptable term that people understand and won't be confusing.
Hence SAF-Cs.
SAF-Cs, and we promoted this as well as the concept of the co-claims. As
what is co-claim?
Co-claims would be having a benefit that would go to an airline and airline customers, or even including other value chain participants like airports or the investors in the aircraft lessors, and other parties in the system. So we could create ways for multiple parties to pay for the cost bringing, to share the burden.
Right. Who did you bring this concept to at that point, and what was the response like?
So we floated it as an idea, but there wasn't any structure around it.
Crickets.
So at this time, I was also talking with Annie Petsunk, formerly at Environmental Defense Fund, and she was one of the architects of CORSIA, and which is obviously compliance oriented. And I said to Annie, "Look, EDF was instrumental creating the acid rain and sulfur dioxide system of tradable credits that was hugely beneficial for air quality in the U.S. And I asked her if she'd be interested in creating a buyers alliance similar to what had been done in wind and energy. And she was very interested. And in fact, I've been talking already with Kim Carnahan.
Then now we come into SEBA.
Yeah,
and GMA.
Then so before GMA existed, we helped create SABA, the Sustainable Aviation Buyers Alliance, because we knew we needed a buyers group, and we needed to work with industry leaders that were unafraid to move forward when we didn't have all the infrastructure. It wasn't a registry. There weren't firm accounting rules on this, and so we needed to work with hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon and others that would be bold enough to go into the space without having all this infrastructure available.
Right. So you talk to her, you bring this to Kim. Then what happens?
And then we educate the stakeholders around how the credit exchange can work. But equally challenging is, what is sustainable aviation fuel? What is sustainable about the fuel? What are the feedstocks related? What should these buyers be concerned about? Because they're not aviation fuel buyers for the most part. Some of the companies have small corporate fleets, but their sustainability teams, that's not a major priority for them. So now we had to educate all of these environmental folks on what are fuel qualities that you should be worrying about. Don't have to worry about the safety, fortunately. Leave that up to the airlines and to the other standard bodies. But you need to think about what are potentially the benefits or the drawbacks for pursuing biofuels.
Right. Who was your first adopter? Who said, you know what, Adam, this is disruptive. I have no clue what you're talking about. Let's do this.
Julia Fiedler.
Really?
So Julia is...
I've had her on the show recently.
Yes. So, full disclosure, she's now the executive director at the Roundtable Institute of Biomaterials. I'm on the board and the board chair there. So,
and you're nominated for an award as well.
Yes. So someone nominated me for an award. We'll see what happens with that. I think everyone is great there. So I'm happy for whatever outcome.
I just need to make sure I have every nominee on this podcast.
There you go. Nice. Aaron Robinson.
He's already been on. Julia has been on.
Freya Burton.
Not yet.
Okay. So you got Freya in the wings then. So Julia was fantastic, but by being an autodidact, like she taught herself everything and just soaked up information like a sponge, and aligned with Microsoft's vision of decarbonizing supply chains. knew from the start that they had to do something, and they couldn't wait for the airlines to adopt SAF at the speed that they needed to decarbonize.
Okay. Which year are we at, and are you still at RMI?
So I'm still at RMI when they're piloting their first purchases, and they worked with Sky Energy. They actually used World Energy volume to do the first SAF certificate purchase.
Wow.
And United helped out too. So Aaron Robinson was part of that transaction. And
it's a small world.
Yeah, a very small world of innovators that are dedicated to pushing a boulder uphill, so to speak. So we finalized that purchase, but that became in 2020. But that became an example of what could be done with Saba, and then Saba put out an RFP for the first volumes. At that time, because I was so concerned about supply and wondering what the heck, where do we get this SAF? I had been speaking with Gene Jabolis, and Gene said, "Hey, we really need a new sustainability person. Do you know any people who might be interested?" And I jumped at the opportunity to work with Gene because they are pioneers in the field of renewable fuels, and I needed to see what's going on from the producer side, because we need to be able to get supply. And Saba is now the demand side, but they have to be connected.
Right. And this was disruptive in a few ways, because on one hand, you were quite independent. You were working with other independent parties to facilitate the whole process.
Yeah.
Now you're jumping on board with a fuel supplier.
Yeah.
And you can be only theirs, only selling their supply. And given you've done all of this book and claim stuff, selling it to Scope 3, no fuel supplier had sold Scope 3 credits before World Energy, isn't it?
That's right. There were some parties that had done similar actions. So Sky Energy had been working with KLM, and they had a corporate program there. But in terms of trying to figure out this to make it work from a co-claim perspective, right? So airlines and their customers get it, and that it started with the fuel producer so they were involved with the process, because before, the fuel producer didn't know what happened with their volumes. This was pioneering. This was the first of its type.
So was Gene and the team already convinced about book and claim, or what was the pitch you made to them? Guys, stop selling actual liquid molecules. You got to go beyond.
So Gene had seen the promise potentially and the willingness to pay as being higher in aviation than the road market. And what Gene wasn't sure about was, how do we then tap into the willingness to pay if it isn't the airlines that's buying? So I think Gene had a tremendous hunch, but I think he would admit too that he wasn't fully bought into the concept initially. So he was in borderline skeptical. However, he had the foresight, or he was foolish enough to be able to entrust me and say, what can we do here? Like, is there a role for us? And how would this shape out? And I think you also were inferring this by the statement that World Energy is one company. Why would we not do something that just purely benefited a single firm, right? But Gene's vision and trust, because he believes in this approach, was that, look, we'll be a player and help to build out this ecosystem as an early innovator. It will float all boats or lift all aircraft. And because World Energy has a couple of steps ahead of these other companies, it won't be a disadvantage to us per se, because we can be leaders and build the industry. So that was why World Energy was enabled.
Stuck its neck out.
It stuck its neck out, and was operating maybe in a non-purely self-interested fashion.
Right. So take us behind the scenes of the first major book and clean deal you did on behalf of World Energy. What was it like? Who did you speak to? How did you get them on board?
Yeah, so it was a period. The contracting was a challenge. So the discussions took 18 plus months.
Wow.
Because we could convince the sustainability teams, but they had to convince their lawyers. They had to convince their CFO. And they also had to work with this challenging dynamic where SAF pricing is volatile, right? So jet fuel prices move up and down in the markets. And so in the United States and other jurisdictions, the government incentive programs move up and down. So you've got that volatility. And then to cap it all off, the most expensive part of making SAF from a bio perspective is the feedstock.
Used cooking oil prices go up and down.
Up and down. So we had to develop a mechanism, a cost plus approach that covered this market volatility and then get the buy-in from procurement teams to saying, look, you're getting this product, but the product price is not determined. It's not going to be fixed price, which is what airlines are most accustomed to. So how do we share information in a way that you can trust the seller? What kind of audited process needs to be in place? How do we address some of the buyer risks, right? We can't have unlimited pricing risks. So what is an acceptable cap for certain costs, operating costs, feedstock, et cetera? So we had to work on those mechanics for a type of contract that wasn't ever created in the market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who was the first customer you approached at that point, and what was their response?
We were speaking to every airline. So every airline you can imagine, pretty much the top 30 or 40 airlines globally. And then we were talking to some of the SABA members because they were clearly leaders in the space.
But why would they even talk to you? Because these members, these Scope 3 buyers can just say, I'm with SABA, I don't need to talk to you.
Yeah.
And the airlines are probably up in arms saying, don't talk to my corporate customers, they're mine.
Completely. Yes, that was very, very true. And I think the story shifted. This is something that you've been following very much. So it's a question of airlines' role with sustainable aviation fuel. To begin with, the projection was, look, an airline would say, we've got this covered. We are masters of our own fate. We can do what we need to do to achieve the sustainability and decarbonization milestones. That was the original story. It is shifted now where the airlines can say, look, in full disclosure, we can't cover the price by ourselves. We need our customers to be involved and, in fact, to cover the majority of the cost.
In fact, airlines like United, I believe, are known for passing through most, if not all of the costs of the premium to the ultimate corporate customer. But again, airlines have traditionally done this.
Yes.
Why would you go fishing the same pond?
So what built the wind and solar markets were something called the power purchase agreements. And those were unconventional contracts at the time, right? Utilities provided the power to building operators. But now you had these project developers who were new entrants that needed funding to cover their wind turbines and the solar arrays. So there was a creative contracting structure set up so that through book and claim you can sell the credits.
I know my electricity at home here in London is completely green, but I do not know the actual electron coming into my house is completely green or not, right?
So if you had to wait for your utility provider, you may never be able to achieve, or not for a while, full use of green electricity. And the same was understood in the solar and wind markets. So the customers that had been buying renewable electricity understood this dynamic. They understood that their role could help to unlock new supply. And there was no middleman, so to speak, or no middle person. They were buying directly from the fuel provider. They had all the information, so it was empowering in that way. And also companies fly on multiple airlines. So it would be strange for one company to buy more SAF or SAF certificates than the actual volume of flights that they have with that carrier.
That's a good point. I buy the last one, but I know some airlines have been up in arms on what World Energy is doing, which has led other SAF suppliers to say, we will not touch your Scope 3. Why did you continue?
Because we believed in our vision, and we understand that this structural challenge with price premium will persist for a while. All the studies from Clean Skies for Tomorrow, they projected there could be cost premiums even in 2050 for PTL at the time before electricity prices started going up, and half of that these sustainable aviation fuels would still cost more than jet fuel. So because of that, World Energy and I knew that we would have to have some kind of mechanism on the voluntary market side if we wanted to stack additional emissions reductions beyond what governments were requiring.
Right. I would love to hear about the DHL deal.
Yeah.
I think that was remarkable in what you achieved. Why don't you take us behind the scenes? Did DHL approach you? Did you approach DHL? Why a cargo airline? Why would they even be interested?
So DHL is a very unusual company in that they made a commitment, €1 billion. They said, we're going to address our supply chain emissions, and we're going to do this without being forced to do it. So they had that fund, which enabled them to sign a contract with us before they even had the back-to-back cargo customer contracts to cover those emissions reductions. So they had the foresight and to invest in this fund and to act on behalf of their customers even before they had those commitments.
And now I know DHL has a product where cargo customers can pay to buy SAF for their shipments.
Yes.
So they went out first, locked in the supply, and then went to corporate customers.
Yes. Yep.
How was it different with Microsoft? You, of course, let's bring back Julia Fiedler into the conversation.
Right.
She was still at Microsoft, and now World Energy does a deal with Microsoft.
Yes.
How was that done?
So Microsoft wanted to support World Energy and other suppliers because they think this is really important to signal that this is the way companies should do business. And without their effort or willingness to pay, we could be stuck with low supply for a while. So they said, look, we're going to do this. We don't need an airline per se, because we know this is the right way to do it, for at least for Microsoft. And again, that they could be buying all their supply for multiple types of operations. So they fly passengers, but they fly a considerable amount of cargo for their data processing, right, for server racks, etc. So they knew that this was a growing source of emissions and that a single airline couldn't supply them all. So they said, look, we just need the Scope 3 emissions. And in fact, because for efficiency, they're doing so many things, they said, maybe we shouldn't even bother with the Scope 1 credits, because that's going to take us time to figure out
which airline is going to use it.
So we won't even worry about those to begin with. They have since changed, and they realize that it's important to decarbonize the industry. We need the direct emissions to go down and be recorded somewhere. But they were bold enough to say it's not going to shouldn't slow us down from getting these early deals done.
Right. Did that make your job easier?
That vision?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, there's still considerable legal hurdles within Microsoft to go through the contracting of this type of contract for credits. But yes, it made it easier that philosophically there was already alignment, as there was with DHL too.
Right. Let's go back to something you brought up earlier, which is airports. We spoke about Scope 3s.
Yeah.
Makes sense what you're doing. Let's talk a little about airports. The last I heard, if you provided top 40 airports in the world by traffic with SAF, that would cover 80% of global demand for SAF. That means the rest of the 5,000 airports don't really need SAF. So that's a very strong case for book and claim, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because where you have efficient supply chains and you're avoiding unnecessary emissions, right? To deliveries to these small airports, the cost of the delivery can exceed the premium for SAF. So that's inefficient, and it's also emission intensive. So completely.
There are emissions moving the SAF molecules.
Yes.
So what would you advise countries like Sweden, which has a mandate to have, I think, completely zero carbon flying by 2030? That means they have to have SAF at every Swedish airport, physical SAF.
Yes, I would advise them to either find a technology where they can do the home brew, so to speak. So a modular unit that's
makes SAF right there.
There you go, near vicinity. And maybe that is PTL, because that
in Sweden there is green hydrogen and green electricity.
The feedstock concerns and the supply chains associated are not a factor. I think for the majority of locations of the world, however, it's probably more efficient to centralize the demand in a few large airports, as you're talking the top 30 airports, and make sure we can get supply there first, and then worry about smaller airports. So that probably is the more effective approach. I think we'll see adjustments on the policy side where, for example, one of the concerns around a mandate is you could create a price, which is the penalty. So if the cost of SAF goes above the penalty price, what happens to producers? Well, they go out of business, or those facilities.
It's all on the producers.
Yeah. So we're in the United States are very eager to see what happens with the SAF mandate. What we anticipate is that there won't be new production capacity unless there's also a voluntary market in Europe. So the capacity and the investments that were made, excellent. Those are made today. But what will be made in the future, we need to make sure that there is a signal that there'll be willingness to pay for these premiums.
Right. Okay. Now, there's one more concept that Gene loves to talk about, which is insetting.
Yes.
Right. How does insetting tie into all this stuff that you're doing around book and claim?
Right. An inset is an intervention or decarbonization within the value chain. So for aviation, that means delivery of SAF somewhere to an airport in the world. And it can be disconnected from your own physical operations. So the benefit of an inset is it's decarbonizing within your sector. There's a question of moral hazard. If you buy an offset, which is an emission reduction that's not attached to aviation, that could be done at the lowest cost, and it will not incentivize the emitter or the operator to reduce their emissions because they're buying these offsets at a fraction of the cost of other components of their operations. So with insetting, we address the moral hazard, we decarbonize the sector, and we do it efficiently. So the inset enables all of those outcomes. And that's why it's something that Gene is proposing. And it seems to be getting traction with some of the key voluntary market standard setters, like the Science Based Target Initiative and the Greenhouse Gas Protocol that's run by the World Resources Institute.
Right.
So that is positive. We don't have full approval yet, but these standard bodies are moving towards acceptance. And we have innovators like RSB and the Smart Freight Center and RMI that have already proven that there is a trustworthy way to track these emissions reductions.
And just to make this concrete, an offset is, let's say, a cook stove.
Yes.
In Mozambique that was not there, that is now being powered through someone's purchase of an offset on a flight.
Yes.
An inset instead is, I think you did that flight with Etihad.
Right.
For COP28, where the flight was from DC to Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
And it operated with SAF pumped out of your LA facility into LAX, but there was no physical SAF on that actual flight.
Correct. So we did the calculations. It would have been $50,000 to deliver the fuel to Dulles Airport. And we asked them, look, do you want to shoulder this burden and the emissions associated? And we had the trucks lined up, and we had a partner supplier that could have helped us.
Did you have electric trucks?
They were renewable diesel powered trucks, so lower emission. But Etihad agreed it did not make sense.
Yeah.
It's silly. So they said, let's do this. Let's do it. Let's create the first net zero flight. And they purchased more SAF than even would have been consumed by the plane because our life cycle emissions were about 83%. So they covered that remaining 17% by additional SAF delivery.
Wow. And they probably saved money because that 50,000 was not spent in transportation.
Yes.
Right? So book and claim makes sense. It's been done in wind and energy and on the electricity grid. Now it's been proven to be successful in airlines as disparate as United and KLM to Etihad. We just spoke about them.
Yep.
So it's been tried out in multiple places. What is the case for then physical volumes of SAF in different parts of the world? Shouldn't we just go all in on book and claim?
Yeah. So from, an economic efficiency standpoint, probably should do all in at book and claim. However, there are other benefits from SAF, right? So the local economy, if they make supplies in that region, that helps to benefit their economy, and it may move towards fossil independence, right? But also, SAF gives you carbon reduction. It also generates emissions reductions for air quality pollutants like sulfur dioxide and particulate matter.
Yeah.
So you gain those benefits if you have physical delivery. SAF. And that's why there's still been interest, especially from the airports, to actually receive the physical SAF at their sites.
So now that you're speaking with airlines and airports, do airlines still want to talk to you despite you going to their corporate customers?
Airlines will talk to us, and now it seems like we're more of a co-equal, but they're not necessarily buying from us. However, I guess we'll get a chance to talk about this new approach with bankable offtake. Again, that's one of your questions of interest. And the RMI team said, banks also want to make sure that the physical molecules are purchased. So we need the airlines still, and we need to figure out what's the contractual structure that they'd be comfortable with. Could we index to Platts, for example, for jet fuel pricing, and then sell them the molecules at the same tenor, the same duration as our corporate offtake? So would an airline sign on for 10 years if they know they're getting an index price for the jet fuel? So that's how we may work together in the future, is for them buying the physical molecules for the energy attributes, not the emissions reductions.
Right. Interesting. You brought in bankable offtakes. How does this work, and what's the next evolution here?
So I cannot tell you how many conferences I've been to. People have said, what we need is bankability, or people even say, what is bankability?
Yeah.
Right. And so we, again, are working with Microsoft, said, look, what if we actually funded some projects and worked with RMI to create a playbook, which would give people the ingredients, the how-to guide or the cookbook on how to make a contract that's bankable. And then we have a separate project with RSB to create what is the standard. So what are the provisions that are necessary to reach a bankable, verifiable contract? And we can then have that audited.
So bankable means the bank will give you a loan based on it.
Yes, it means that, right. So bankable means be able to get debt capital. So equity capital is limited. The returns have to be higher, right? It's earlier stage, it's higher risk. And the consequence for that is it's higher cost to a SAF producer, and there's only so much equity that can go around, right? That's ownership. With debt, you have everyone who potentially banks, that money can be used by the bank for a secondary or tertiary loan, but the banks are very cautious. They want to manage risk. And the number one risk, or besides technology for SAF, is commercial risk. Because banks need to see, is there willingness to pay? Do you have a creditworthy counterparty? Right? And for airlines, that's difficult because the margins are so low and the industry has been challenging for a while. So we need the higher credit rating customers.
Hence the Microsofts of the world.
Exactly. So these corporate end customers, the scope 3 customers, they can be creditworthy counterparties. So can you have them sign on to long-term offtake, make it binding, right? Take or pay, or supplier or producer or supply on the producer side, meaning like if we can't produce it, we have to find alternative volumes. If we make it mutually binding and have some other provisions, like I said, with RMI saying you need to sell the molecules too, if all of those pieces are put together, can then we have a standard buy that says this is bankable, and the bank says, good, great. We don't have to spend so much money due diligence.
Right.
We know this. We can release capital at favorable rates, and this will lower the cost of World Energy's products, and then lower the price that we pass on through cost plus to our customers. So they could say, wow, instead of you having to pay 14%, you're paying 6%. That's a significant savings when it comes to the capital expense.
Wow. How has the traction been for this?
Yeah, so there is interest, and RSB standard is coming out. It's in draft format. They've had public comments that's coming out before Christmas, we'll say, and we've heard there's interest, and World Energy would like to pioneer this too. pilot it. We have contracts that we think even retroactively might meet these requirements. And we are open to other innovators and leaders to try this out. So right now we're on the cusp. This is not proven yet.
Right.
We think, though, it will be appealing because for the corporate buyers, they have this perpetual question. They want to know, is their voluntary action, is it making a difference? And in the terms of carbon accounting, is it additional?
Yes.
Meaning additionality requirements. So they want a way to signal that. And a bankable offtake is the most fundamental economic additional action.
It signals the additionality. It signals that it is going to be delivered to an airline.
Yes.
It signals that the Scope 3 buyer will buy it and pay for it. So with these three things the bank can give you a loan for building that facility, which can be a large amount at a lower interest. Did I explain that correct?
Very well.
Okay, good. Yes. That means you did a good job explaining it in the white paper, which I did read coming into this conversation. Now, I see a trend here, Adam. World Energy seems to keep launching new, I wouldn't even say projects, new frameworks or new ways of thinking that benefit the entire industry and not just itself. Is this by design? Because you are helping your competition, right?
Yes. We would love other people to join us in this journey. Yeah, there's the big enough opportunity. The market is large enough. The demand is potentially significant enough that we can build this together. So yes, this is something where we believe these frameworks will be useful for us. They'll be useful for our competitors. And ultimately, they'll make the industry work because no one wins when there's just a trickle of SAF supply. Yeah. That doesn't help us. And we know this is the largest single source of emissions reduction for the industry.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's great to get a behind the scenes of how book and claim works. I love the potential this has to grow. I truly believe book and claim will play an increasingly important role in insetting emissions and not just offsetting aviation's emissions. Because guess what? Growth is coming. Yeah. Growth is there. At the Dubai Air Show, there were $201 billion in new aircraft orders in 1 week.
Wow.
These airplanes are not electric or hydrogen powered. They will be flying conventional jet engines, and you need SAF for them, right? So, if not now, then when? If not through these innovative frameworks, then how? So it's great to understand your journey from ICF to RMI to now World Energy, still leading this work. And congratulations on coming this far.
Thank you, Shashank. It's been a fun trip, and I appreciate sustainability in the air and everything that you do to help advance sustainability in the industry as well, and Dirk as well.
It's a team effort. It's definitely a team effort. Now, the final part of this interview, I'm sure you've heard these interviews previously. The final part of this interview is where we get to know Adam a bit better. And we'll start with something simple. What's your favorite airline?
Oh, this is a really tough question, but I will pick JetBlue, and I will put that out there.
The true Bostonian here.
So JetBlue is one of its hubs is in Boston, and recently they were overtaken by Delta, another great airline. But because of many years of JetBlue being the number one connector for me, I've flown more on JetBlue than any other carrier.
Yeah.
And found their staff are happy.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful...
They're happy and plugged up.
When I step on the plane, I may be worried about other things at work, but the greetings I get are genuine, and it's a fun airline.
Right. Okay, JetBlue, good one. Favorite airport?
So I'd like to say Massport, but the traffic is so tough sometimes in Massport. There are other airports in terms of the scenery. I think Vancouver is a spectacular airport.
Stunning airport to land into.
It's really fantastic. Yeah. I love the food options at SFO recently, maybe because they've got lots of gluten-free, which is something I appreciate, and not every...
Being in California.
California is...
Gluten-free Avo Toast is what we're doing with your skinny latte.
Perfect.
A skinny oat milk latte.
Excellent.
Only in San Francisco.
Absolutely.
It will just set you back $28, but you'll have your deal. Okay. Favorite city?
London is one of my favorite cities, and it's great being here now. I love walking around. I realize that a lot of the infrastructure has been built through colonial actions. So it's been built from the globe has helped create London, but it's spectacular that those resources really are for the public. So if people can get to London, it's an incredible city to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite book?
Favorite book is difficult. I will share. It's just Sustainability in the Air is up there. I would say the book that I read is The Lost Art of Running. And I like that book because it's a little bit about you can run more efficiently and potentially be less injured. And then also run faster. And there are great stories. Shane is a global traveler, and he has these anecdotes from around the world of different races he's been to. And it seems that he is as much an aviation buff as he is a running expert. So I really appreciated the stories and then how it can enlighten runners through simple changes in their body mechanics to have a more enjoyable experience.
Wow. I believe the editor of The Atlantic, Nicholas, just came out with a book on running as well.
Yes, and I'm very fascinated to read it. A friend of his just set the 50-mile record for age 45 to 49 in the U.S. And so this is like I aspire never will be in the same stratosphere as these runners, but it's inspiring to see their stories.
Nice. What do you do in your free time?
So lots of fun parenting, running lately. It's been a passion. So there's something called Suzuki that you play instrument with your child to get them bought into playing, right? This is something that the Suzuki method. And so I did that with my younger son for flute. My older son, rather.
Do you play flute?
So I ended up playing on stage the flute, and so Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and pretty simple pieces. My son soon far exceeded my ability to play and learn. But my younger son, I didn't have the time to learn an instrument with him. So I said, I want to do something with you. So I am running, and I joined his running club.
How old is he?
He is 17.
Okay.
But I started doing this 2 years ago. Got lots of injuries, but
we've heard about those.
Yes, some from bicycling, but some from running. But I really understand now what does it take to run fast, or faster in my case, fast for my son, and it's opened my eyes up to become a beginner again.
Okay.
Get the Zen mind, beginner's mind.
I'm going to check it out. The Suzuki method.
The Suzuki method. So the Suzuki method pertains to instruments, but it can be applied to other aspects of life. And that's so I actually call myself Suzuki Run Dad.
Nice. Maybe that's what your book should be called when you have that. What is something you'd like to learn?
So there's so much to learn, and I think asking better questions, something I appreciate what you do. I think we can all get better at that because underneath the surface, there is a whole world and universe that we're unaware of, and we just need to figure out the right way to ask.
Ask the wise. Yes. The wise. And finally, what's the best advice you've received?
The best advice was probably be confident, and if you truly believe in something, pursue it. And even if other people don't see it, you can make it happen, through your effort and influence and genuine belief for a positive outcome. That is sometimes very challenging when you're facing headwinds or the daunting price of SAF premiums, for example. But it does help. And before I was an aviation professional, I worked as an outdoor instructor with Outward Bound and convincing kids that they could do things. So I had to channel this advice. And so I share with these teenagers that they really could climb the mountain or paddle the dozens and dozens of miles with canoe or face whatever setback they had for weather. So I like to embrace that. I have to relearn this lesson whenever I get an obstacle, but I think it's really helpful.
Oh my God, you brought back some memories rushing into me. I've done Outward Bound thrice.
Fantastic.
It was OBS, Outward Bound Singapore, which is where I grew up.
Yes.
One was kayak around the entire island of Singapore, the entire country, in 24 hours. So we did that full 24 hours kayak. We only had raisins with us, which was crazy because I'd never only eaten raisins. And we found these remote islands with, I wouldn't say Komodo dragons, but rather large lizards on the islands with them. That was one.
Wow.
It wasn't as scary. I survived and I enjoyed it and really got into kayaking and canoeing since then. But the scariest one was where I must have been 15. We were all teenagers at that time. I think outward bound, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And I had to climb this wooden pole, which was higher than the highest thing I'd ever seen, let alone climb. And you climb to the top and you have to hang on a trapeze bar.
Fantastic.
I climbed shaking with fear and sweating. I climbed and I stood on it. And the bar was way closer than I thought it was. And I was like, oh, this is easy. And then I saw a friend of mine downstairs waving at me. So I waved at him and went with one hand and fell because I was waving. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And we could not climb again. You brought back some memories of Outward Bound. Adam, thank you very much. I'm glad we could speak.
Shank, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simpliflying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simpliflying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our Supervising Editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Meera Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Lihia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimen is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simpliflying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.